In 1961, the photojournalist Eve Arnold documented a Nation of Islam event in part led by Malcolm X in Washington, D.C., promoting Black power and liberation. The series is beautiful, including not only photographs of Malcolm X, but also of the crowd. And among these incredible pictures, there's this one. 3 white men stand out in the front row of a crowd of Black people, but what makes them stand out isn't only the fact that they're white, but more importantly, the fact that they were Nazis. Both the Nazis and the Nation of Islam believed that Black and white people couldn't coexist, though the Nazis believed so because of their belief in white supremacy, while the Nation of Islam believed so because they thought white institutions would never let them fully integrate. So both had similar aims, but for very different reasons. But in any case, George Lincoln Rockwell, the man in the middle of this picture, admired the Nation of Islam and particularly its leader, Elijah Muhammad, who he called a Black Hitler. That was meant as a compliment. When I raised the camera to photograph Rockwell and his men, he hissed at me, "I'll make a bar of soap out of you." I hissed back, "As long as it isn't a lampshade," and kept on photographing. I think it's very important to underline Eve Arnold's courage for taking pictures in such events. Perhaps because she was Jewish or white, she finished photographing a Harlem Nation of Islam event with a dozen burn marks on the back of her clothes from men putting out their cigarettes on her. George Lincoln Rockwell founded the American Nazi Party in 1959. He hated communists, Jews, Black people, and queer people. He's also the man who coined the expression, white power. In 1964, he was invited to speak at the University of Michigan, and such invitation sparked controversy. It wasn't the first time that he'd speak at other universities and do debates. Many people wondered how responsible it was to invite a Nazi on campus. Some believed that, though Rockwell has the right to his opinion, a university shouldn't give him the legitimacy of an invitation given how dangerous Nazi ideas are. Some believed in the marketplace of ideas, and that if Rockwell's ideas didn't make sense, they'd be simply ignored. Rockwell himself believed that, or at least used that belief to his advantage. Others answered that Rockwell didn't appeal to reason, but to emotion, as fascists do, and that his ideas in the marketplace of ideas endangered the very existence of that marketplace. Despite protests, both before and during the event, the speech was given on October 13, 1964. For posterity, it was recorded, and I listened to all of it. It's incredibly relevant for today's context, though, as you may imagine from a 1964 Nazi, he didn't have to hide his racism. There's the conspiracies, the critique of how Black people are portrayed too nicely in movies, talking about how weak and soft Americans are now, saying that queer people want to outlaw heterosexual sex and that they should be run out of the country, saying that white people are the true victims of hate in America in 1964. And finally, he complains about being punched in another university campus. Anyway, if you're interested in listening to the speech, it's like about an hour long. I'll put it in the description of the video. If I forget, which I might, just write a comment. I read all my comments, as you know, so I'll be reminded and then I'll link it in the description. But yeah, you've been warned. It's, as you may imagine, it's extremely violent, it's racist and bigoted.
Now, you were in the laundromat at the time of the shooting. Did you hear the shots?
Yes, sir, I heard the shots and footsteps when he ran back across the building and saw Mr. Rockwell fall out of his car on the passenger side of the street. Yeah. And 2 shots had been fired through the windshield, and we went out almost immediately, and he was dead almost immediately.
3 years later, Rockwell was assassinated, shot by his former colleague. Now, was that a good thing? I'd much rather live in a world where these kinds of murders don't happen. But as John Lindsay, New York City's mayor at the time, said about the murder, violence breeds violence. I've been meaning to make a long-form video on political violence, but I've also been meaning to make a video on fascism, and I've been wanting to do that for months. So I'll make this short. Americans, from Trump's assassination attempt to later completely unrelated news, have used the term political violence to simply talk about overt interpersonal violence which have political aims. But what if someone who has the influence that Rockwell had used that influence to, for example, call for running queer people out of this country? Or what if they spread the Great Replacement theory, trying to make white people fear that they'll become a minority, turning them against people of color? Or what if they say that Muslims want to import values into the West that seek to destabilize our civilization? What if he advocated to force women who have been raped to stay pregnant? Those are all incredibly violent positions which by themselves don't have that many consequences, but spewed from a powerful and influential fascist are, if we are to take a consequentialist approach, much, much more violent than the death of a single man. Some may point to the irony that George Lincoln Rockwell, who advocated for white Americans to get armed to protect themselves against communists, black people, and Jews, was shot to death. But I much prefer the analysis of Mayor John Lindsay when he said violence breeds violence, taking in consideration that Rockwell was violent without ever breaking the law. And because this video is about Eve Arnold's picture, of course, I also like that this image is what George Lincoln Rockwell will be best remembered by. A photo of him in a black crowd, cosplaying as a Nazi 16 years after their defeat, looking extremely uncomfortable and out of place, with his arms crossed. Would I rather live in a world with less murder? Of course. Would I rather live in a world with less Nazis on it? Of course. I think it's possible to, without rejoicing his death, not mourn it either. Let me know what you think of the assassination of the founder of the American Nazi Party, George Lincoln Rockwell, in the comments. As always, I read all of them. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Roman Brandel, X-Towns, and every other patron for supporting the channel. Your support is incredible. I'm very privileged to have it, and I can't thank you enough. Welcome on the floor of an undisclosed apartment in Montreal. I've been having a lot of fun here. I've been visiting, and I might move to Montreal. I really like it here. Yeah, a lot of things happened since last video. I thought I'd make a video 2 weeks. You know, I make a video every 2 weeks, I guess, but now I decided to make one a week after. A lot has happened in the last week. I even changed my publishing schedule for it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was thought-provoking. I hope it, I don't know, helped you process recent events. Maybe it will help you talk about it with other people. Share it if you thought it was interesting. I thought it was interesting. I like looking at history and seeing how our reaction to certain events are widely different from the reactions that have happened in the past. The mayor of New York saying, yeah, well, violence breeds violence is insane. I could not imagine someone saying that today, like a public figure, and not being chastised and vilified and stuff like that. Anyway, thank you again for watching. Stay updated, subscribe, like the video. Check out my letterbox, my Instagram. I'll see you in the next video, maybe in a week, maybe in 2 weeks. The publishing schedule might be different because of my, hopefully, possible move to Montreal. Anyway, all right. Thank you so much for watching. Again, goodbye. See you soon. Share the video, and au revoir.